Let's talk about population because it's going to be an issue in the ongoing election process. And how many people you have in a state really does determine just how much federal dollars you get and how much influence you have in Congress. And we've seen in the past few weeks here some different reports that are causing some confusion. Good morning. It is Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. If you want to get a hold of me, you can do so live and local at 217-629-7970. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com or find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just search out Bishop on Air and we can connect that way. But we've had a couple of different reports come out. One that's kind of sparked all of this was just a few weeks ago when the U.S. Census put out a post-enumeration survey. And that survey indicated that it had undercount Illinois by nearly 2% in the 2020 census. In the 2020 census, Illinois lost 18,000 people, and we lost a seat in Congress. So our influence in Congress diminished. That's why you've got, for instance, Mary Miller and Rodney Davis going face-to-face in the 15th Congressional District. Those are two incumbent Congress people that are facing off in a Republican primary for the 15th Congressional District. So you've got that at play. But this is after years and years and years, like I think 8 years total of continued population estimates on the decline in Illinois to the tune of tens of thousands over year after year after year. So you have the census come out saying we lost people, and then a year later they say, okay, wait a second, we may have undercount by 2%. Governor J.B. Pritzker held that up and said, well, that means we've got 13 million people for the first time in history. You also have Democrats in Congress through U.S. Senator Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth and the Democratic congressional delegation in the U.S. House writing the U.S. Census asking them to revise the Illinois population from 12.7 to 13 plus. And they ultimately want that formula to change on how you go about getting those federal dollars. But how all this plays out, of course, it'll be interesting. And it's an election year. Are we to look at that undercount as a sign of Illinois grew? But then you have a couple of other reports that came out since then. One being IRS migration data. We talked about this last week, where it ultimately showed that in the year up to July 1st of 2021, Illinois lost more than 100,000 tax filers moving to other states, more than 100,000 just in 1 year. Then you had the U.S. Census update the population of cities and villages across the country. And in Illinois, when you add up all of the 1,300 lines of cities and villages, you get a negative 100,000 plus population, meaning 100,000 plus have left the state of Illinois, according to the U.S. Census city and village calculation. So which is it? Are we gaining population or are we losing population? That's a question I asked Congressman Rodney Davis last week when he was in town. Here's some of what he had to say to that question of, is Illinois losing or gaining population?
Illinois can grow. Illinois should be a hub of population growth. But what we have are politicians in Springfield that are doing everything they can to tax the heck out of Illinoisans and not address gas prices and energy prices here in Springfield and in our state. And they're forcing families to make budgetary decisions to move to lower cost of living, better access to lower cost energy states. And we need to do better by electing better politicians. We need to do better by getting J.B. Pritzker and the Democrats out of power here in Springfield.
Should the federal government give Illinois more tax dollars, as the governor is asking for?
If the Department of Census recognizes and says there's a mistake, that's what happens when you have a special census for any community. I worked 2 special censuses for the town of Ullman. Actually worked one of them. Heard about the other one in 1990. Ullman was zero counted in 2000. They were zero counted in 1990. They had their tax dollars go to other areas of government. So we worked with them to do a special census. That was the rule. That was what was in place back then. And we got them counted, and then they were able to get the dollars that they were supposed to get through the normal formulas where motor fuel tax dollars and others are given.
So we'll see what ultimately happens with this. Again, it's an election year. There's a lot of messaging back and forth on all of this, and we'll bring you the latest here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News.